Grad in Pruden. And because my background is architecture, I began Thesis with the intention of discovering some type of connection between architecture and communication design. And I found the connection I was looking for while watching New York's 4th of July fireworks with my family this past summer. I realized that the firework is a unique form of extreme spatial communication. It also made sense to me that the United States celebrates Independence Day, a day of liberty and freedom, with a form of communication that is independent, free, and liberated from a substrate surface. So this experience helped me define the topic of my thesis. Detached message, which I define as a self-supporting visual message liberated from a substrate surface and presented in the air. For example, the photograph on the left is attached. Its substrate surface is the building's facade, and it is presented as a pasted image. In contrast, the photograph on the right is detached. It has no substrate surface, and it is presented floating in the air. My overall goal of this thesis is to create an awareness, especially for designers, of this type of developing message, so appropriate and informed decisions can be made when designing with suspended visuals. And while the idea of suspended visuals may sound like something from a sci-fi movie, detached messages have been around for a very long time. In fact, one of the earliest forms of visual communication was detached, the smoke signal, which was used in ancient China and Native America to communicate over a long distance. Fireworks have been around since the 7th century, when the Chinese began using them to frighten away evil spirits, but today they are used primarily for celebration. In 1912, the first commercial use of a neon sign was displayed at a Paris barbershop. And at night, neon signs give the illusion of suspension as the buildings they are attached to fade into darkness. And by the 1930s, aerial advertisements began to gain popularity. The Goodyear blimp had arrived, Pepsi helped make skywriting popular, and people could pay for personal messages to be towed behind airplanes. 3D cinema reached its peak in popularity in the 1950s, and virtual messages moved towards us. Virtual reality reached its popular peak in the 1980s, and virtual messages moved around us. And as I continued my research, among the examples of detached messages that I had discovered, patterns began to form. So to further define the concept, I created a typology of detached messages, and the factors that determined their classification include form, materiality, and behavior. Projected messages detach and reattach from substrate to substrate. Projected messages form temporary bonds with the surface they highlight. This project, titled Green Cloud, highlights the pollution from a smokestack with projected laser light. Pure light itself can be defined as a detached message. It tends to be extremely ephemeral and difficult to capture with the naked eye. In this image, a camera uses prolonged exposure to capture the light sketches of Pablo Picasso. Dots of light, which I call physical pixels, is another form of detached message. Physical pixels disperse throughout space, recombine, and link. Artist Erwin Reddle's Matrix 2 scatters a grid of LEDs throughout an entire room, creating an immersive web of light. And so far, the 3 forms I have classified involve light, but solid forms also detach. When a suspended message has a higher amount of tangibility, it not only begs to be played with, but also gains a sense of wonder as its weighted matter appears to defy gravity, just like Andy Warhol's Silver Clouds. Messages made from particles also exist. This form fades and alters quickly. It disperses and disappears with the wind. Memory cloud by minimoforms is an example of this, as texted messages temporarily exist inside shifting fog. And detached messages extend beyond their form and become part of the architecture they inhabit. To explain this, both of these images show a bird's eye view of New York City with streets and buildings. The image to your left shows that attached messages border space. They outline space. In contrast, the image on the right shows a city filled with detached messages. They fill volume. And because detached messages fill space, they have a greater effect on the body. Whereas attached messages are mostly a visual concern and exist in the periphery, detached messages become physical. So what happens when we walk through them, or when they surround us? Do we want messages blocking our paths and doorways? How can we control their presence? What forms will we choose? So to conclude, detached messages exist in many forms. And all of these forms exist in space and interact with our entire physical being. They border reality and imagination. They border instant wonder and instant annoyance. They border beauty and clutter. So now it becomes the designer's responsibility to guide these messages with appropriate local and situational protocols. So for my project, I plan to create a design that will help extend the concept of detachment to designers, so that we become aware and informed of the messages that surround us. Thank you.